Veiling the audacious flight of Amelia Earhart.
Ooh, that's a good one.
We're really diving deep into the life of Amelia Earhart, a true pioneer in aviation, an American icon whose courage and adventurous spirit really captured the world's imagination.
Absolutely a legend.
Her record-breaking flights, they weren't just about personal triumph. They truly challenged what society believed women were capable of achieving.
Right. She really pushed those boundaries.
So today, we're going to explore those formative years that shaped her, those incredible daring feats that defined her career, the profound influence she had on, well, everything, and of course, those lingering questions surrounding her final flight, and the powerful legacy she left behind for, well, all of us.
Sounds like a fascinating journey. Where should we begin?
Well, I think it's always fascinating to go back to the beginning, right? To understand the roots of someone like Amelia Earhart.
Makes sense. So let's rewind the clock back to July 24th, 1897.
Okay, back we go.
Amelia Mary Earhart is born in Atchison, Kansas. Now, what's interesting is that her early childhood wasn't exactly the typical, nuclear family setup of that era. Her father's work kept him on the move constantly, so she actually spent quite a bit of time living with her maternal grandparents.
So even from those early years, you could almost see how she might have developed a certain independent streak. I mean, being shuttled back and forth, having to adapt to different environments. And then there are those nicknames, right?
Oh, yeah.
Mealy and Millie. Do you think those are just like cute childhood things, or do you think they hinted at something deeper about her personality?
Honestly, I think those nicknames really do reflect an adventurous and independent spirit that was already starting to bloom in those early years. And what's even more telling is that her mother, she actively encouraged both Amelia and her sister Muriel to engage in activities that were, let's face it, pretty much considered boys' stuff back then. Things like sports, even hunting.
Wow, really?
Hunting, yeah. Which is pretty remarkable for the time, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that definitely played a role in shaping Amelia's unconventional outlook on life.
Absolutely. A mother encouraging her daughters to be, well, limitless at the turn of the century. That's incredible. And then there's that story about the homemade roller coaster, right? She built it with her sister and uncle when she was just 7 years old.
Oh, yeah, that's a classic Amelia story.
It sounds like such a pivotal moment in understanding her early fascination with flight, even if she didn't quite connect it to airplanes yet.
For sure. Just picture it.
Yeah.
You're 7 years old, building this ramshackle roller coaster in your backyard. And then, of course, it crashes, right? Pretty dramatically, too. But instead of being scared or upset, Amelia's reaction is pure exhilaration. She even said, it was just like flying. I mean, that tells you everything you need to know, right?
Yeah.
That yearning for flight was already there deep down inside.
It's funny, though, because a few years later, she actually sees her first airplane at the Iowa State Fair in 1908, and she's totally unimpressed.
Yeah, a thing of rusty wire and wood, I think she called it.
Right. Like, what? It makes you wonder what it was about that roller coaster experience, that feeling of freedom and exhilaration that just resonated so differently. What do you think changed her mind later on?
Well, the real turning point seems to have been during World War I. She was working as a nurse's aide in Toronto, where her sister was living, and the hospital was full of wounded soldiers, many of them pilots. So she's hearing all these incredible stories about flying, the thrill, the danger, the sheer novelty of it all. And it just completely captured her imagination. It wasn't just the machine itself anymore. It was the human stories connected to it.
So it was almost like the machine itself wasn't enough. It needed that human element, those stories of adventure and daring, to really spark her passion. That makes a lot of sense.
Right. And then, of course, when she finally experienced flying for herself, that sealed the deal.
And that happened in 1920 in California.
Exactly. One airplane ride, and she was hooked. She said, as soon as we left the ground, I knew I had to fly. That single flight changed everything. It was no longer an abstract idea. It was a visceral, undeniable calling.
And she wasted no time, right? By 1921, she's taking flying lessons with Anita Snook.
Another amazing woman in aviation, yeah.
It's just so inspiring to see these women supporting each other in such a male-dominated field, especially back then.
Absolutely. And, it wasn't an easy path for Amelia. Flying lessons were expensive, so she worked all sorts of odd jobs to pay for them. But she was determined. Within 6 months, she'd saved up enough to buy her own plane.
A bright yellow Kinner Airster biplane. The Canary, she called it.
Love that name. So evocative of that early era of flight.
And her progress was incredible. By December 1921, she had her pilot's license from the National Aeronautics Association. Talk about dedication.
Seriously. And just a little over a year later, she gets her international pilot's license from the Fédération Aéronautique Internationale, becoming the 16th woman in the world to achieve that.
Yeah.
It's a pretty big deal, right?
Huge, solidifying her place in the history of aviation. And that brings us to her career, which, let's be honest, was just one audacious achievement after another. One of the first moments that really put her in the spotlight was in June 1928, when she became the first woman to fly across the Atlantic Ocean.
Right, a huge milestone.
But it's important to remember she was a passenger on that flight, not the pilot.
Yeah, she was on the Fokker FEF Friendship. The flight took about 20 hours and 40 minutes from Newfoundland to Wales.
And even though she was celebrated as a hero, met a president, the whole 9 yards, she felt like she hadn't really earned it.
That's right, she even said she felt like just baggage, like she hadn't really contributed.
Oh.
Which just shows you how ambitious she was, how driven she was to prove herself as a pilot.
Exactly. And that feeling fueled her next incredible achievement just a few years later. May 1932. She becomes the first woman and only the second person after Lindbergh to fly solo nonstop across the Atlantic.
This time in her own plane, a Lockheed Vega 5B.
And that flight, that was a real test of her skill and courage. I mean, she faced terrible weather, ice on the wings, even a fuel leak.
It was almost 15 hours of intense flying, ending with a landing in Northern Ireland. But she did it, and that earned her the Distinguished Flying Cross, well-deserved recognition for her incredible feat.
Absolutely. And of course, she wrote about this experience in her book, The Fun of It, right?
Yes, a great read for anyone who wants to hear about that flight from
Yeah.
her perspective.
But it's amazing because the transatlantic flights are just the tip of the iceberg, really. Her career was full of record-breaking achievements, pushing the boundaries of what anyone thought was possible in aviation.
You're telling me she set a women's altitude record in 1922, 14,000 feet. Then she becomes the first woman to fly an autogyro, you know those things with the unpowered rotor?
Yeah, those are wild.
She even set an altitude record in one of those. Then, the same year as the solo transatlantic flight, she also becomes the first woman to fly solo nonstop across the United States, from Los Angeles to Newark. And in 1935, she does this amazing flight, solo from Hawaii to California.
Incredible.
And that same year, she also flies solo from Los Angeles to Mexico City, then from Mexico City to Newark. And then in 1937, she becomes the first person to fly from the Red Sea to India. And on top of all that, she holds a bunch of speed records, including the women's world flying speed record.
It's mind-boggling. It's like, how does she fit all that into one lifetime?
Right. And the thing is, it wasn't just about personal glory for her. She was also a huge advocate for women in aviation. In 1929, she co-founded the 99s, an organization for female pilots, and she was its first president.
And the 99s are still going strong today, which really speaks to the impact she had.
Absolutely. She was a true trailblazer, not just for her flying achievements, but for what she did to support other women in the field.
So I think it's important to talk about her broader influence beyond her specific accomplishments. What kind of impact did she have on society, on the world?
Her influence was massive. For one thing, she helped to change the way people saw aviation. Before her, it was this dangerous, almost mythical thing. But her flights, especially the transatlantic ones, helped to make flying seem more real, more achievable, more like a possible future for everyone.
And of course, she shattered gender stereotypes left and right. She proved that women could excel in this incredibly demanding field, which was pretty much unheard of back then. And that opened doors for so many other women to follow in her footsteps.
Definitely. She became this symbol of possibility, of breaking down barriers, of achieving anything you set your mind to, regardless of what society tells you. And that resonated with people all over the world.
She wasn't just a skilled pilot. She was a cultural icon, a symbol of courage, independence, and the pursuit of dreams.
Absolutely. She showed the world what it meant to challenge the status quo, to push the limits of what's possible, and to live life on your own terms.
And for anyone listening who wants to hear more about her journey, in her own words, she wrote those 2 books about her transatlantic flights, right?
Yeah, 20 H's, 40 Men, about her first crossing of the Passenger, and The Fun of It, about her solo flight. Both are amazing reads.
And even though the mystery surrounding her final flight still lingers,
Her legacy of venture, courage, and determination continues to inspire people all over the world.
this is Resonance Podcast. Until next time, and thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening.